Your first assignment isn't a target. It's a week alone in a foreign city. No phone, no contact. One instruction, don't be remembered. You're sitting in a cafe somewhere in Europe. You don't know the city. You weren't supposed to ask. On the table, a coffee going cold and a newspaper you haven't read. No weapon, no target, no handler in sight. This isn't a test of whether you can kill someone. It's a test of whether you can disappear. 7 days, the same city, and not one camera, not one face, not one name that can be connected to you when it's over. Most people think this world is about pulling a trigger. They're wrong. It's about building a life that doesn't exist. And you, right now, are learning that for the first time. Let's go back to the beginning. Back to before any of this made sense. Back to level 1. Level 1, the errand boy. You're 22 years old. You owe someone money. Not a lot, but enough that it matters. Enough that you stop sleeping well. A man you half know, a lieutenant in a local crew, offers you a way out. Deliver an envelope. Don't open it. Don't ask what's in it. Don't mention the address to anyone. You do it. 20 minutes. Easy money. 2 weeks later he calls again. This time the envelope is heavier. You're not in this world yet. You're standing at its edge, looking down, and telling yourself it's just an errand. In Cape Town, criminologists studying gang-associated operatives found the same entry point again and again. What they called the Hammerman pipeline. Young men. Small debts. Small favors. Nobody forces them into anything. They simply keep saying yes. The calls keep coming, and every time you answer, the next step gets a little shorter. The envelope never comes back, but the calls do. And they start asking for more than deliveries. Level 2, the novice. You don't choose this moment. It chooses you. Your handler frames it as a warning, a message. He says the target is involved in something dangerous, that you're not starting anything, you're just finishing it. You tell yourself that's what it is. The morning after, you check the news. You find a word that isn't warning. This is the level where most people stop. Their hands shake too much. Their minds can't build the wall fast enough. The ones who continue, the ones who stay in this world, start doing something the brain does automatically under this kind of pressure. They reframe. Researchers studying violent offenders found that the most operationally stable ones treat their targets not as people, but as problems. Not as lives, but as assignments. You're doing it right now, and you don't even realize it. The fee for the record is around £200. In 2010, a 17-year-old in North London was paid that exact sum for his first job. Santre Sanchez Gale. Criminologists now use his case in textbooks as the defining example of what a novice contract killing looks like. You think about the money. You think about how simple it was. You try not to think about the other part. You don't feel what you expected to feel. That's the part that scares you most. Level 3. The dilettante. 6 jobs. Number training. No organization. Just a reputation in 3 neighborhoods that you never asked for and never confirmed. The money has changed your life in small ways. New clothes. A second-hand car. You quit the job you hated. Nobody asks questions because you always seem fine. You've started to think of this as the job. Criminologists call this stage the dilettante, someone who has crossed the line repeatedly, but still operates without structure. No handler, no contract, no system. What makes this tier uniquely dangerous, to law enforcement, to rivals, is that there's no pattern, no organizational fingerprint, no network to trace. You are dangerous precisely because you are invisible. But there's something else happening at this level that nobody warns you about. You've stopped checking the news the morning after, not because you're comfortable with it, because your brain has made a decision without asking you. It filed to work somewhere you can't easily access and moved on. Somewhere between the 3rd job and the 6th, you became someone different. You just didn't notice when it happened. Level 4, the journeyman. You have a handler now, a real one. You don't know his name. He calls from rotating numbers. You meet in parking structures, never the same one twice. Payment arrives in cash inside a folded newspaper left on a specific bench in a park you've memorized. It feels like theater. Until you realize that theater is what kept the last 3 people who held your position out of a cell. You are now reliable. That's the word criminologists use for this tier. Reliable and consistent, but not exceptional. You have access to work, to clients, to the machine, but the machine has access to you too. And that's the trap nobody explains at the entry point. The connections that give you work are the same connections that make you visible to law enforcement. Paradoxically, the more embedded you become in the underworld, the more exposed you are. Journeymen are the most frequently arrested tier, not because they're careless, because they're known. And leaving requires permission. Permission requires leverage. You don't have any. You work for someone reliable. And now they rely on you. That's not the same as being safe. Level 5, the contractor. Multiple clients now. Assignments with 72-hour windows. A file arrives with a photograph inside. You study the photograph the way a project manager reads a brief. Patterns, routines, access points. You've developed a pre-job ritual, 4 hours precise, never deviated from. that your brain uses as a container for what comes next. You are, at this level, a tool being used not just by organized crime, but by systems far larger than it. The GITOC, the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, tracked over 2,700 contract killings across more than 80 countries in a single 2-year window. They're finding contract killing isn't just about eliminating rivals. It's used to control communities, take over markets, silence journalists, intimidate institutions. You are part of an economic and political infrastructure, not just a criminal one. One day a file arrives, and the photograph inside looks like someone you know. Not them, just someone with the same jawline, the same way of standing. You notice. You complete the job. You made a rule early on, never looked them up afterward. You broke it once. You found out their name, their job. 2 children. You never broke the rule again. The rule exists for a reason. The reason is that you cannot afford to be human at the wrong moment. Level 6, the specialist. The handler who calls you now is not a gang lieutenant. He is careful, educated. The call comes through a lawyer's number, a company you've never heard of, an encrypted protocol you had to be taught. The target's name is one you recognize, not from the street, from the news. Criminologists who study the upper tier of contract killers, the masters, note that they almost always have military or paramilitary backgrounds. They travel internationally. They operate specifically to keep distance from the local networks that would otherwise expose them. But that's the operational profile. What's harder to describe is the moment you understand who the client is. It's not a cartel, not a crime family. The intermediary who hired you represents an interest that has a flag, a currency, a seat in a major international body. The target has a security detail, which means someone with the authority to stand down that detail already agreed to look the other way. You've been in this world long enough to know the distance between state power and criminal violence was always paperwork, always jurisdiction, never morality. And yet, for the first time, you sit with the file open and ask yourself a question you've never asked before. What am I? You get the answer wrong, but you get the job right. And somehow, that's the worst possible outcome. Level 7, the ghost. 3 passports, 3 names. You haven't used the one you were born with in 11 years. You maintain a cover identity so complete that you've attached memories to it. A childhood that didn't happen. A university you didn't attend. A city you're from that you first visited 3 years ago to walk the streets and make the story feel real. You've built a human being from scratch and stepped inside them. Researchers who study deep cover operatives across intelligence agencies, across criminal networks, describe a documented psychological reality that has nothing to do with guilt. It's about identity dissolution. The genuine clinical loss of the line between the constructed self and the original one. You don't know where the cover ends. You're not sure it ends anywhere. Then a file arrives. The photograph inside is not a stranger. It's someone from before. Before the passports. Before the names. Before any of this. And here, right here, the script has to stop and speak directly to you. Not the character. You. You've followed this person across 8 levels. You've watched every rationalization, every small compromise, every step that felt logical at the time. And now the question that has been building since level 1 finally arrives. Would you? The man in the mirror doesn't have a name you recognize. That used to bother you. Now it just is what it is. Level 8. The cost. The work still gets done. It always gets done. But certain things have stopped working. Sleep. Quiet rooms. The ability to sit near someone who trusts you, fully trusts you, without feeling the weight of everything that trust cannot see. Psychologists have a clinical name for this. Perpetration-induced traumatic stress. PITS. It's distinct from standard PTSD because it arises not from witnessing violence, but from committing it. Documented across combat veterans, executioners, even police officers involved in lethal force. The research is clear on one point. There is no level of professional detachment that makes this disappear. The brain registers what the hands have done, regardless of what the mind has told it. You haven't retired. Not because retirement is impossible, because retirement means becoming still. And still means quiet. And quiet means you finally hear everything you've been storing since level 2. The work gave you money, status, a kind of power that most people spend their whole lives pretending to want. What it took, everything that would have let you enjoy any of it. That's the deal. Nobody tells you that at the beginning. And by the time you understand it, you're already too far in to hand it back. You never stop being good at this. You just stop being sure what good means. Somewhere in a city you've never visited, in a cafe you'll never find, someone is sitting with a coffee going cold, and a newspaper they haven't read. They arrived yesterday. They'll leave tomorrow. No one at the tables around them will remember their face. They're 22 years old, and someone just handed them an envelope.